It started out like any other night. I was 20, still living at home while juggling community college and part-time gigs. That night, my mom asked if I wanted to come with her to 7-Eleven for some late-night essentials. It was almost 10 p.m., and honestly, I just wanted a break from my econ textbook. The store was the one a couple blocks from our apartment complex in Tempe, Arizona. It was quiet, one of those warm desert nights where the air feels still and everything looks yellow under streetlights. We pulled into the empty parking lot, save for a white van parked crookedly near the entrance. I noticed it. I remember that. Inside, the store was nearly empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the place smelled like old coffee and cleaning spray. The guy behind the counter didn't even glance up. He was too busy scrolling on his phone. I grabbed a basket while Mom went to the back to get milk and cereal. I wandered off to the snacks, then toward the drinks. That's when I saw him. He was already looking at me. He looked off, mid-40s maybe. Long, greasy hair pulled back in a ponytail, baggy hoodie with holes in the sleeves. What really unnerved me, though, was how still he was. He stood next to the drink coolers, not browsing, not reaching for anything, just standing and staring at me. I tried to ignore it, turning to look at a rack of protein bars, but as I moved a few steps away, I could feel his gaze follow. My skin prickled. I bent down to pretend I was reading the ingredients on something when I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass cooler door. His hand was below his waist, moving, slowly, deliberately. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. It took a second for my brain to even register what I was seeing. Then it hit me all at once, like a jolt of electricity. I stood up abruptly and turned around. He didn't flinch, just kept staring, lips parted in this grotesque, dazed smile. I bolted straight toward the back of the store. My mom was still browsing the dairy case. "Mom," I hissed, grabbing her arm. "We need to leave. Right now." She saw the look on my face and didn't ask questions. We power walked to the front. As we neared the register, I glanced back once, and he was still there. Same spot, still staring. But now both hands were visible. I don't remember what we bought. I don't even remember if we paid. I just remember rushing out of there, heart pounding, skin crawling. Mom could tell something was seriously wrong. "What happened?" she asked once we were in the car. I told her everything. Her jaw clenched. "Stay here," she said. She stormed back into the store. I watched her through the windshield, pointing at the man, then talking to the cashier. I saw the guy try to walk toward the exit, but my mom blocked his way. The cashier finally looked up, clearly rattled, then reached under the counter, probably hitting the panic button. 5 minutes later, a cop car pulled up. The man was still inside, pretending to be browsing now. He didn't look up as the officer entered, didn't even react when they cuffed him near the drink coolers. They walked him out in front of our car. For a moment, I locked eyes with him. His face was blank, expressionless. But as they pushed his head down to fit him into the back seat, I saw it. The smile. That same slow, empty smile. It was around 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday when I realized I was out of cold medicine. I'd been fighting off a nasty head cold for days, and that night, the congestion hit me like a brick. Of course, I should have restocked earlier, but with work, the baby, and everything else, I just forgot. My husband was passed out on the couch with a gaming controller still in his hand, and the baby had finally gone down an hour earlier. I didn't want to wake either of them, so I slipped on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and headed out. The only place open that late near our apartment complex in Riverside, California, was the 7-Eleven on Colton Avenue, just a 5-minute drive away. I wasn't worried. I'd been there 100 times before, usually after long shifts or for late-night snacks. The area isn't the best, but it's not the worst either, just somewhere in between. I pulled into the lot and parked in a spot near the front. The store was empty, save for the young guy behind the counter and some truck parked at the far end of the lot with its engine running. I walked in, heading straight for the cold medicine aisle, picked up a box of Dayquil and grabbed a bottle of blue Gatorade from the cooler, just enough to get me through tomorrow. As I made my way back up the main aisle, I stopped to glance at the chips. I hadn't eaten dinner, and a bag of hot Cheetos sounded tempting, even with a stuffy nose. That's when I felt it, the pressure of being watched. It wasn't dramatic or obvious, just a shift in the air, that primal part of your brain that knows before your eyes do. I looked up. Standing at the end of the aisle by the beef jerky rack was a man. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with long, greasy brown hair and a stained hoodie. He wasn't holding anything, just staring at me. I offered a polite nod and stepped toward the register, but as I walked, I noticed him fall into step behind me. Not close, but close enough that I heard the shuffle of his boots echoing softly on the tile. The cashier didn't look up as I approached the counter, so I placed the medicine and Gatorade on the counter and waited. The man behind me didn't place anything down. Instead, he reached out and grabbed a pack of gum from the impulse shelf and set it right behind my stuff. No words, no eye contact, just presence. I moved a step forward toward the register, trying to make space. I could smell him now, a mix of sweat, stale smoke, and beer. My stomach turned. I pulled my hood tighter. Then I felt it, a soft pressure against the back of my thigh. I froze. Was it an accident? No. 2 seconds later, it happened again, this time on the other leg, firmer. I turned halfway toward him. "Hey, back off!" He mumbled something like, "My bad," eyes half-lidded, still grinning like this was some game. The cashier, now alert, glanced up and looked between us. "Is everything okay, ma'am?" "No, this guy's too close. He just touched me." The cashier looked stunned but said, "Sir, I need you to give her space or I'll call someone." The man took a slow step back, but his eyes stayed locked on me. I turned toward the counter, heart pounding, and fumbled for my debit card. He was still standing there, still watching. The cashier rang me up, hands shaky. I could feel her discomfort too. She couldn't even make eye contact with me. I took my bag and headed for the door, walking fast but not running. I made it just outside when I heard the door swing open behind me. I turned. He was coming toward me. Not walking, marching, fists clenched, jaw tight. I ran. My car was parked 2 rows down. Keys already in hand, I hit the unlock button and sprinted across the lot. My shoes scraped the pavement as I bolted. I could hear him, the scuffle of his steps, the wet breath through his nose. He was gaining on me. I reached my car just as he did. As I opened the door and slid inside, I felt the impact. He slammed both palms on the hood, yelling something I couldn't understand. I jammed the key into the ignition, barely shutting the door before slamming it into reverse. The car jolted backward and he lost his balance, rolling off the hood and onto the asphalt. I didn't stop to see if he was okay. I threw it into drive and peeled out of the lot, tires screeching against the curb as I turned hard onto Colton Ave. I didn't look back. I didn't care. I didn't even realize I was crying until I pulled into the apartment parking lot, hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped the keys. I slammed the door, locked it 3 times, and collapsed on the living room floor. My husband woke up to find me shaking, holding the Dayquil bottle like a life raft. He wanted to go back, said he'd handle the guy. But I just wanted to feel safe again, to close the curtains, to crawl into bed and pretend it never happened. But I couldn't, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, grinning, waiting, coming toward me. Since that night, I never go to the store alone after dark. I carry pepper spray. I carry a stun gun. I watch every aisle, every footstep, because the scariest part? That man didn't try to rob me, didn't try to talk, didn't even pretend to have a reason. He just wanted to follow, to get close, to touch. And I'll never forget the sound of him hitting my hood, or the look in his eyes as I drove away. It was a Tuesday night, late summer, sticky air, crickets screaming like they had something to prove. I was working the closing shift at a 7-Eleven just outside Asheville, North Carolina, the kind of town where nothing ever really happens, until it does. It was a slow night, just me, a cup of burnt coffee, and some half-empty shelves. Around 11:40 p.m., the chime above the door went off. I looked up. A man walked in. Tall, tan work boots, baggy jeans, and a camo baseball cap, pulled low. He had a wiry build and moved slowly, almost too casually, like he wanted to look harmless, but was trying too hard. "Evenin'," I called out. "Have it." He didn't answer, just gave me a tight nod and walked straight to the back of the store. Something about the way he moved set off quiet alarms in my head. I've seen my share of weirdos working this shift, but this guy had an edge. He didn't browse, didn't pick anything up. He just wandered, looped around the drink cooler, past the frozen food, then lingered near the back exit door, which was supposed to be employees only. I kept one eye on him while pretending to stock candy near the register. He turned at one point and caught me watching. His lips curled into a faint smirk. That was the moment I saw it. His hands were empty. No drink, no chips, no Slurpee. He wasn't here to shop. He drifted over to the magazine rack and stood there, flipping pages but not reading. Occasionally, he'd glance over at me, just for a second, then look away. I checked the time, 11:58 p.m., almost closing. I stepped into the back room, grabbed the key to the front door, and radioed my coworker, Mark, who was supposed to be taking out trash behind the building. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. Then I heard it, the back door rattling, like someone trying to open it without using the handle. I rushed to the security monitor. Grainy black and white feed showed the back lot. That same guy, standing outside now. But how? I ran to the door and locked the deadbolt. Then I turned to the front. He was inside again, standing near the coffee station. My heart dropped. He couldn't have looped around that fast, unless there were two of them. I stepped out from behind the counter. "Can I help you with something?" I asked, trying to sound firm. He smiled. "I'm just waiting," he said. "For what?" He didn't answer, just stared at the clock. Midnight. The chime rang again. Another man walked in. This one was bigger, wearing a hoodie despite the heat. No eye contact. He walked straight past me and joined the first guy at the back of the store. I stepped back behind the register and hit the silent alarm under the counter. The two of them whispered. Then hoodie guy looked at me and started walking up the aisle toward the counter. That's when the door burst open again. Mark, holding a mop and soaked in sweat. He stopped in his tracks when he saw them. The two men stiffened. Hoodie guy muttered something and turned. They walked out, quickly but not panicked. A green Ford pickup pulled up seconds later. They climbed in and the truck tore off into the night. Police arrived 10 minutes later. Turns out that same truck was spotted near two other 24-hour stores earlier that week. Both places had workers who were attacked after closing. They never caught the guys, but I'll never forget that smirk, that look of someone who had a plan and was seconds away from executing it. I work the night shift at a 7-Eleven just outside Tallahassee, Florida. It's a lonely stretch of road, the kind of place that gets quiet after 10 p.m. Just me, the buzzing fluorescents, and the occasional drunk college kid looking for pizza bites. It's boring mostly, but it pays the bills, and I like the quiet. That night started like any other. I was halfway through restocking the gum rack when the chime above the door dinged. He walked in slow, tall, skinny, bald except for a strip of greasy gray hair hanging over one ear. He wore an oversized beige suit, buttoned all wrong, and sandals. In one hand, he carried a book that looked older than sin. "Evenin'," I said without much thought. He didn't respond, just walked straight toward the coffee machines, glancing side to side like he was checking for something, or someone. I figured he was just another weirdo. You get a lot of them in the middle of nowhere. But then he turned and looked straight at me. His smile was too wide. His eyes were off. "You look like a man with potential," he said, voice thin and cracked like dry leaves. "A man chosen." I laughed awkwardly. "Chosen for what? Cleaning Slurpee machines?" He didn't blink. "We've been waiting for someone like you." He stepped closer, placing the tattered book on the counter like it was made of gold. The thing was thick, bound in cracked leather with weird symbols burned into the cover, none of it in English. "I'm Brother Ellis," he said, "of the Luminary Order. We are the bearers of the divine sequence." I stared blankly. He smiled wider. "The DNA of God, a genetic line passed through centuries, and it runs in you." "Okay, great. A cult guy." I tried to laugh it off. "Look, man, we don't sell theology here. You want chips or not?" He leaned in, voice lowering. "We tested the water. It's in the blood. You live near the grove, don't you?" My stomach twisted. There was a grove behind my apartment complex. Just trees and vines, nothing special. Except that a month ago, I'd found a jar of hair and teeth buried under a dead raccoon back there. I never told anyone. "How do you—" I started. He cut me off. "You've seen the signs, dreams of fire, sounds from below, the shifting faces." I hadn't told anyone about those either. He opened the book. Inside were drawings of figures with long arms, no faces, glowing mouths, and next to one, a name. Noah Blake. My name. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a crazy guy. He knew things. He told me the others were coming, that they'd meet at the grove under the next full moon, when the blood calls loudest. Said I didn't have to come, but it would be worse if I didn't. Then he took a vial from his pocket, a glass tube sealed with wax. Inside was something thick, dark, swirling. He slid it across the counter. "Drink this when the time comes. You'll know." Then he left. No coffee, no chips, just silence behind him as the door chimed closed. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't touch the vial either, just stared at it for hours. The next night, I worked again. But this time, I wasn't alone. Around 1 o'clock a.m., 2 men and a woman walked in. They were all dressed in white, pale as bones, same wide smiles. They didn't buy anything, just stood near the fridge aisle, staring. I told my manager the next day. He laughed it off. "Halloween weirdos," he said, but Halloween was 2 months away. That night, I checked the grove. At first it looked empty. Then I saw the circle, 6 figures in robes kneeling in the dirt. In the center, a deer carcass split open and burning with blue fire. One of them turned. It was Brother Ellis. He didn't say a word, just pointed to the vial still in my hand. I ran, dropped the vial, didn't look back. I quit the job, moved back in with my cousin across the state. But sometimes I still get letters, no return address. Inside, photos of me standing at the register, sleeping in my car. One even had a lock of my hair. Last one came with a sticky note that read, "The sequence cannot be broken." And every full moon, I swear I hear them outside the window, waiting. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon in early fall, and I was home alone. My parents were both working late shifts, and my younger brother was off with friends at a football game. I had the house to myself, which usually meant Netflix and frozen pizza. But that day, I had a reason to get out. I needed a new lanyard. My old one had snapped 2 days ago, and my community college required all students to wear their IDs on campus. It wasn't urgent, but I figured I'd pick one up before the week started. There's a 7-Eleven about 6 blocks from my apartment. It's not huge, but they sell just about everything, from snacks to stationery. It was close, convenient, and usually quiet. So I threw on a hoodie, grabbed my keys and phone, and headed out. The air was crisp, not quite cold, and the streets were calm in that strange Sunday way, when everyone's either at church, watching sports, or recovering from the night before. I pulled into the 7-Eleven parking lot, parked by the side, and walked inside. The familiar chime of the automatic door broke the silence. There were a couple people at the coffee bar, and a cashier behind the counter scrolling through her phone. Everything felt normal. I headed toward the back corner where they keep things like earbuds, keychains, cheap sunglasses, and lanyards. I was browsing through the small rack of them, looking for something plain, nothing pink, nothing that said princess, nothing with flames, just a lanyard. That's when I noticed him. He was standing at the far end of the same aisle, pretending to look at phone chargers. I say pretending because He wasn't really looking at anything. He was just kind of standing there, holding a box upside down, staring at me. He looked to be in his 50s, short grayish hair, jeans, and a faded green jacket. He had that could be a mechanic, could be a drifter vibe, gritty, worn down, but not obviously threatening. He caught my eye and smiled. "Hey there," he said. I nodded, trying to be polite but not inviting. "Hi. You doing some shopping?" He grinned wide, like that question was supposed to be funny. I gave a nervous chuckle. Yeah, just grabbing a few things." He took a small step toward me. "That's good. Sundays are perfect for errands, huh?" I nodded again, not really responding. My hand hovered over a black lanyard and I grabbed it like it was the last one on earth. I turned and started walking toward the drinks section. I figured I'd grab a soda, pay, and bounce. As I moved into the next aisle, I saw him again, coming around the other end. He wasn't holding anything. I picked up a bottle of Sprite, turned sharply toward the front, and walked straight to the cashier. I heard footsteps behind me, slow but deliberate. I stood in line, third person back. He got in line right behind me. He still had nothing in his hands. That's when he leaned in a little too close and said, "You're really pretty. Has anyone told you that today?" I froze. My mouth went dry. I'm 18. I'm legal. I get that. But something about the way he said it, like he'd rehearsed it in a mirror full of bad intentions, made my skin crawl. "Thanks," I said, forcing a smile and stepping slightly forward. Then he asked, "You got a boyfriend?" I didn't turn around. I said, "Yeah, I do." He laughed under his breath. "Lucky guy." I felt a shift in the energy, like the air around me just dropped 10 degrees. There was a guy standing at the Slurpee machine. He looked maybe 19, tall, black hoodie, earbuds in. He kept glancing over at me. I didn't know him, but I looked at him and gave him a small shake of the head, just a tiny, desperate signal that said, "Please." To my surprise, he got it. He pulled out his earbuds and walked over, put an arm lightly around my shoulder and smiled. "There you are," he said to me. "Ready to go?" I nodded fast, not even caring how obvious it was. "Yeah." The older man blinked, almost like he couldn't process what had just happened. His smile dropped. "Oh, sorry, I didn't know she was with someone," he said flatly. The guy beside me didn't respond. He just stared at the man, the kind of stare that says, "Don't." The creep nodded once, then walked off toward the front door, still without buying anything. I turned to the guy. "Thank you, seriously." He shrugged. "I saw your face. Figured something was off." He walked me to the register, waited while I paid, and stood by the door as I left. I never got his name. I barely got a good look at him, but he was there when I needed him. When I got back to my car, I sat behind the wheel for a full minute before starting it. Even now, I still think about that man. His face, his voice, that smile. It wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't have to say. The kind of look you don't forget. And I can't help but wonder, what if I hadn't gone when I did? What if no one else had been there? 5 chilling tales, all unfolding in places we've passed by 1,000 times. It's not about where you are. It's about what might be watching when no one else is around. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, give this video a like and subscribe for more true horror every week. Thanks for watching. And as always, sleep light, because the shadows don't clock out.